Our speaker today is Sergeant Major Tom Urrutia. Sergeant Major spent 31 years in the Army. His military awards include the Legion of Merit, the Army Commendation Medal, Meritorious Service Medal, Vietnam Service Medal, Vietnam Campaign Medal, and the National Defense Medal. He served with the 507th Transportation Group in Vietnam from 65 to 66. He later served with the Army Reserve for 25 years as an instructor and senior operations NCO with the 95th Division. He retired as a Sergeant Major on September 20th, 2002. He also received a bachelor degree in secondary education from Texas A&I and a master's of liberal arts from Southern Methodist. 2 years ago, he and his wife moved to Hot Springs Village from Texas. Please welcome Sergeant Major Urrutia.
Fellow veterans and honored guests, thank you for being here today to honor those brave men and women who died in defense of our country. At this time, I would like to recognize another special group of people. When I call your group, would you please stand and remain standing until all of you have been recognized? Will the veterans from World War II please stand? Will the veterans from the Korean War please stand? Will the Vietnam veterans please stand? And will the Gulf War and Afghanistan veterans please stand? Veterans, I salute you. Today is Memorial Day. Please be seated. Today is Memorial Day, but if you watch television or listen to the news, you think today was the day to go shopping. As a matter of fact, there are people on the way to the mall at this very moment. But that's okay. They have the freedom to do that. But those of us who served in uniform during our country's wars, those families who've lost loved ones, we have a different attitude towards Memorial Day, and we don't take our freedom for granted. I want to tell you about an Army chaplain in just a moment, but there's another group that I think deserves recognition today. According to the Department of Defense, there are 83,000 servicemen and women who are unaccounted for, whose fate we do not know, from World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. So we must also keep them in mind today and pray for their families. I want to tell you a story about an Army chaplain from Kansas. He served during the Korean War. His name was Father Emil Kapaun. And many of you Korean War veterans recognize the name and know who he is. In 1950, the communists invaded South Korea. Father Emil Kapaun was with those first American troops who landed in Korea. They fought their way through the mountains in the bitter cold. And during the battle, they were attacked by 20,000 Chinese soldiers. The numbers were overwhelming. But the Americans fought a brave fight. But they recognized that they were severely outnumbered, and they called for an evacuation order. Father Kapaun decided to stay on the battlefield. After the Chinese had finally overrun all the American positions, there were only about a dozen American soldiers left on the battlefield, and they were all wounded. the Chinese soldiers were about to kill him. But Father Kapaun negotiated with the Chinese officers to allow the wounded Americans to surrender. When they were taken prisoner and they were about to be led on a forced march north to the prison camps, Father Kapaun noticed a wounded American laying in a ditch with an enemy soldier pointing a rifle at his head. Father Kapaun, at the risk of his own life, rushed that enemy soldier and pushed him away and picked up that wounded American and put him on his shoulder. That enemy soldier was astonished. Here's a man with no weapon, and he rushes him and pushes him away. He was so astonished that he didn't retaliate. On the forced march towards the prison camps, many of the men couldn't keep up. They were wounded, they were tired, they were cold and hungry. But Father Kapaun would help them get up and continue the march. He would beg them not to quit when they wanted to quit, because he knew that if they quit at that time, they would be shot and killed. Once they arrived at the prison camps, conditions were very harsh. Little food, little means of warmth. Father Kapaun would share his clothing, would share his rations with the other men. At night, he would sneak out and scrounge for food so he could help feed his fellow prisoners. He would lead the men in prayer. He would hold secret religious services. The enemy soldiers didn't like that. So they would punish Father Kapaun. They would make him stand out in the cold without any clothes on for hours. They would ridicule his faith. They would ridicule his Creator. But he didn't give up. But finally, he got into a weakened condition, and the guards saw this as an opportunity to get rid of him once and for all, because they didn't like him instilling faith and hope. So they picked him up, they dragged him, they threw him in a ditch, left him there to die. Surviving prisoners report that as they were dragging him away, he blessed those enemy soldiers. And the last words out of his mouth were, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." 2 days later, Father Kapaun died. His remains were never found. On April 11, 2013, the President of the United States bestowed the Congressional Medal of Honor on Father Emil Kapaun for extraordinary bravery against an armed enemy in Ulsan, Korea. His family was there, fellow prisoners, Korean War veterans. And after presentation posthumously to Father Kapaun, this is what the President had to say. And I quote, "The valor we honor today, an American soldier who never fired a gun, but wielded the mightiest weapon of all, a love for his brother so pure that he was willing to die so that they might live." In more recent times, a young man from right here in Hot Springs, Arkansas, his name was Adam Brown. He joined the Navy in 1988, overcame many obstacles to become a Navy SEAL. He did it with the loss of one eye and severed fingers in one hand. At this point, Adam Brown could have retired. He could have come home and drawn a pension, but he refused to do so. He continued to serve his country, and on March 17, 2010, Navy SEAL Adam Brown was killed during combat operations in Afghanistan. He made the ultimate sacrifice on behalf of our nation. Eric Blam, a noted author, wrote a book about the story of Adam Brown. The title is Fearless. It's a story of love, family, and patriotism. It will give you inspiration, a new inspiration in our military and in our country. In fact, we plan to give that book to our grandson on graduation, from high school graduation. There are many other heroes, and we honor them today. And I want to thank you for being here today to honor our men and women who gave their lives in defense of our country. God bless you. God bless our troops. And God bless the United States of America. Commander.